Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today we're doing the Adamant IT service. So, this laptop we've got here, this is a HP Pavilion G6 series. It came in with symptoms that it was not starting, stalling, running horribly slow, etc, etc. We've run hardware tests on this and found that there's nothing wrong with the hardware. It's not a failing hard drive or anything like that. It just needs a good service. So I generally recommend to clients to get their computers serviced once a year or so. I tell people they're a lot like cars. So I'm going to show you exactly how I do that on this laptop. Now bear in mind there may be a lot of jump cuts in this video because servicing laptops takes time, so we're going to have to try and condense this down. The first thing I'm going to do is open up Task Manager and just have a general look at what state this thing is in. So straight away you can see that in Task Manager the CPU is sitting on 100%. So the laptop is not idling, which is the first issue we've got here. So let's have a quick look down Task Manager just to see what is loading up the CPU. It looks like we've got several sources here, and all of them are AVG. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of AVG. That's probably going to fix our idling problem straight away. Now, the AVG uninstaller is really ropey. So what we're going to do, we're going to get the AVG removal tool, which will strip AVG off of this computer a lot quicker. So I've got to get this connected to the internet, so we're going to join our Wi-Fi network. Good grief, this thing is a brick. Okay, we're actually going to go, we're going to download this tool on another computer. It's going to be a lot faster. Okay, so we're going to Google search for AVG removal tool. Now this is an official tool from the AVG website, so we don't have to use any dodgy programs for this. AVG are good enough to provide us with the means to get rid of their rubbish. We're going to download that and we're going to shove it onto a flash drive. Like that. Safely eject, because we always safely eject our flash drives. Alright, let's get rid of that. Now we could probably solve this huge this 100% CPU load issue by trying to kill AVG, but I actually think it's going to be faster to run the AVG removal tool and let that shut AVG down than it is going to be to try and kill these processes. Because trying to kill antivirus processes is a nightmare, because antivirus runs at a system user level, which is one of those really bizarre above admin levels. It's kind of like root. And that means that it's really difficult to terminate it, and if it itself has crashed, it's very difficult to recover it. Which is why antivirus has a nasty habit of just completely paralyzing the whole system when it goes wrong. And this is the reason why once we've removed AVG, we will be using Windows Defender. Because Windows Defender is the one antivirus that doesn't suffer these issues, because it's actually developed as part of Windows, not as an add-on. 10 minutes into the recording and we haven't achieved anything yet. Alright. We're going to get AVG remover onto the desktop, because running apps like this from a flash drive is generally a bad idea. You want to try and get the removal tool onto the local drive and run it from there. Just because otherwise, if the flash drive gets knocked loose or something like that halfway through, you're going to have half of an AVG installation on the computer. And that's going to make everything even worse if it's possible to get worse than what we currently have. Right, let's see if this is going to work. I'm just doing mouse clicks and enter presses at the moment because I don't dare try and double click on anything. Okay, on AVG remover, we're just going to go ahead and continue. And we're just going to let that grind through now. Right, 13:06, 40 minutes after we begun. We're going to restart. Right. It's, yeah, the AVG remover is still nowhere near done kind of thing, but it looks like hopefully it's booting the system without AVG running, which means we're actually going to, be able to operate the computer now. We won't be sitting at 100% CPU load all the time. Okay, so we have finally gotten rid of AVG. So AVG is no longer on the system. And the system is actually starting to respond. Let's check Task Manager and see if we're actually idling properly now. So, fat chance of that. All right, so yeah, it's better, but we're still not idling properly. We've still got very high disk usage, and we still have some AVG stuff running in the background. So what we're going to, how much AVG have we got here? Oh, that's not bad. It's just those couple of apps up the top. So what we're going to do, we're just going to run that AVG removal tool again. And we're just going to run it again, rinse and repeat until we've got no more AVG. Okay, right, so finally AVG is gone. However, you'll notice we're still not idling. We're still sitting at 100% CPU. So let's scroll down and find out what's causing that now. All right, there's one. Windows Modules Installer. That's Windows Update. So Windows Update is having a hissy fit. Now, it has been trying to install Windows Update while I've been using it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to flat kill Windows Update and clear its cache, just so we can get a clean install of that. And in fact, come to think of it, if I can just get to the Settings app, we probably need to do the Creators Build Update on this laptop. So we're just going to flat out kill the Windows Update and do the Build Update manually. And then that will just take away any need for that. Yeah, we don't have Creators Update on that. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to get ourselves an admin command prompt. So I'm going to right click on Start, command prompt admin. And we're going to do net stop Windows Update automatic update server. Enter. Windows Update service is stopping. This may or may not kill those installers that are already running. Right, Windows Update service could not be stopped. Let's repeat the command. It's still starting or stopping. Okay, right. What we're going to do, we're going to drop back into safe mode again. And what we're going to go into safe mode and we're going to delete the Windows Update folder. So I'll get back to you guys once we're back into safe mode. All right, so because I've got no HDMI output, I'll just quickly tell you what I've just done. Once again, I held down Shift and booted into recovery mode, and I've opened up a command prompt and I've deleted C Windows software distribution. So this is the Windows Update cache folder that holds all of the pending Windows updates. So I've deleted that, so we reset the Windows Update system. So that means when I reboot the computer, there will be no pending updates and we need to start again. So that will give us a nice clean start. Okay, we have rebooted again. Let's head back into Task Manager and see if we are finally making progress. Oh, it's better. We've still got high disk usage. The CPU is actually not all over the place. Well, it is all over the place, but it's not sitting at 100% anymore. Right, where's the disk usage coming from? This might just be because the laptop is still loading up. Yeah, there's no single thing here. This is just lots of things adding up. So that is probably going to sort itself out shortly. Is the CPU going to calm down again? I think it will. Right. Okay. I think we're okay to keep going now. So let's actually move on to the servicing routines and we'll just let that take care of itself. I have a plan for the rest of that, but we'll come to that in a bit. So firstly, what we're going to do now is we're going to look through everything that's running on startup. So if I head over to startup here, you can see we got a crap load of stuff running here. We've still got some old AVG stuff here. However, because all the program folders for it have been nuked, those are neither here nor there. So to deal with all of this stuff, we need to go through the registry and through task scheduler. So let's start in the registry. So I'm going to hit start run and type in registry, regedit, sorry. And we're going to go to HKey current user, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version run. And in there we'll find everything that is running on startup just for this user. Now in this instance it's just OneDrive. Let's see if they are using OneDrive. They are not signed into OneDrive. Yeah, there's no account connected, so we can kill OneDrive. They're not using that. Goodbye. Right, so now we're going to climb back up to the top. And now we're going to go to the same place but in local machine. So local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version, run. Okay, right, so we've got some AVG stuff. We'll come back to that in a sec. Right, BT Broadband Desktop Help, we don't need that. The Log Me In user interface, we don't need that because they're not using anyone for remote support right now. Synaptics Trackpad Enhancer, that is providing extra functionality for the trackpad. That's a good thing, we're going to leave that alone. IDT is the sound card drivers. So this as in the audio effects for the sound card. Now, by default, all of the effects are switched off and no one uses the audio effects. So we're going to get rid of that. Then finally at the bottom, we've got Windows Defender. Now, if we get rid of that, that just gets rid of the shield from the bottom right of the screen. It doesn't actually stop Windows Defender. So on my computer, I would remove that. But on a customer computer, I leave it there because the customer likes to see a little shield in the bottom right confirming that their antivirus is working. So we're going to leave that alone. Right, let's see if it's going to let us delete these AVG entries. It's probably not. Yeah, those are not going to delete because they're protected files. So we're going to have to mess about and try and delete those manually. I wonder if I can modify permissions on those. No, that is going to be a problem. I'm going to come back to that later. That is going to require really advanced messing about to get rid of that. And we don't need to do that as part of this service. We've deleted the AVG program files, so these things are not running anything. It's just clutter at this point. So I'll delete that off camera because it's going to be a pain in the backside. And you guys don't need to see that. Right, we're going to climb back up to the top. The last place we need to check in here is local machine software, WoW 6432 node. These are 32-bit applications that are running on startup. So we're going to go once again into Microsoft, Windows, current version, run, and here we'll find any 32-bit application. So we've got another AVG one. Are you going to let me delete you? Yes, you are. Cool. Right, Cyberlink power to go. This will automatically launch Cyberlink if they insert a video DVD, which we don't need. They can do that themselves if they want. HP CoolSense does nothing. It's to do with fan control, but it doesn't actually work properly. The fan will look after itself. HP Quick Launch, this handles volume controls, brightness controls, things like that. However, it is obsolete as of Windows 10, so we can go ahead and delete that. Remote Control 10, that again is Cyberlink software that can go. And Start Catalyst Control Center, we don't need that because the Catalyst Control Center doesn't need to run on startup. If we want that, we can get it just by right-clicking on the desktop and going to AMD Catalyst Control Center. So that's that. We've cleared that up. Right, we've finished in the registry. Let's get out of that. Now we're going to go to computer management. I'm going to right-click on the start button and go to computer management. And we're going to head into the task scheduler. Okay, so we're going to drop down the first section of task scheduler and select task scheduler library. And this will show us anything that is scheduled to run on startup. Okay, we've got quite a lot here. So let's quickly have a whiz through this to see if there's anything important there. So we can figure out what stuff is either by the name and description or by having a look under actions. So here we go. This one that has a really weird name, we can instantly see that that is by AVG because it's launching something in program data AVG. So we're going to go ahead and delete those two straight away. Let's just check the other one is also AVG. Yep, goodbye. Okay, right. How about, so that's the Adobe updater. We don't need that to be running in the background. Whoops. Antivirus, and that's another AVG one. Goodbye. See, look at this. Even the AVG removal tool is garbage. Whatever. Right, another Cyberlink app. As said, we don't need these to be running in the background. The browser choice screen. This is an old legacy thing from the Windows 7 days. This is probably a Windows 7 or 8 update. This is no longer required, so that can go away. The Google Updater. The Google Updater actually works, so I leave that alone. It always has two entries, though. I leave the multiple triggers defined one because the other one, this one repeats every hour, which is a little bit aggressive. We don't need it to run every hour. Once a day is fine. Right, HPC Cement Scheduler. That is some HP software. The HP software is all bollocks and we're going to get rid of it. Mirage Agent. Again, that's Cyberlink stuff. This is to do with the webcam drivers. It allows you to put special effects so you can put sepia tone on your webcam. We don't need that. Delete. Goodbye. Get rid of it. OneDrive launchers. We've already established we're not using OneDrive. Goodbye. We're getting rid of it. Optimize what? Optimize start menu cache files. This is disabled anyway, so that doesn't need to be there. So that can go, goodbye. Windows, the start menu generally looks after itself, so we're not worried about that. Smart PC fix, right, that's junkware, so we're going to get rid of you. Synaptics touchpad enhancements, again, that is to do with touchpad drivers. I'm actually going to delete that because this is already running from the registry. So we already have a startup entry for that, so it doesn't need to be in scheduled tasks. And then finally, user feed synchronization. This is to do with synchronizing RSS feeds, Atom feeds, stuff like that across user accounts. We don't need it, it can go. Goodbye. There we go. Bam! That is a lot of stuff we have just cleared up, so we can close this now. Finally, if we head back into Task Manager and Startup, as you can see, we've taken so much stuff. These last 4 items that are left here, these were sitting in the registry, and we knowingly did not delete them, which is why they're still there. So there's no further action required here. Again, I'm going to deal with those AVG things later on. So we're fine. Now let's do a reboot, and let's just see how we're getting on. I'm just going to go ahead and just delete the AVG remover there because we're finished with that. And then we will reboot and see what that task manager looks like. Okay, let's see how that task manager is looking. I want to see a nice, more stable idle. Okay, it's slightly better, not massively. It's more consistent at least. Now, this disk usage, there's going to be programs that are sitting there trying to do optimizations and stuff like that in the background. Oh, there we go, it's kind of. Now, the only way to fix this is to leave the computer to idle for a long period of time. So I usually do that at the end of the service. When I've finished doing everything, I turn off all the power saving features on the laptop so it doesn't go to sleep, and I just leave it to run overnight. So we're going to get to that later on. So again, we're seeing improvements here. It's starting to come down, but the real proof of the pudding will be after we've finished the service there. So I'm not panicking about that. The point is the laptop is already feeling more responsive. Like I can close that and I can reopen Task Manager. And as you can see, it's actually loading up in a timely fashion now. I'm not having to screen cut to cut through that loading time anymore. And that disk is starting to calm down. So we're starting to make progress. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the programs list and get rid of anything that I don't want to be there. So first item on the chopping block is going to be the HP support assistant down here, just because that's garbage and I don't want it to be there, because it just nags the customer to do things that they don't need to do. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick uninstalling spree. We're also going to look for anything else that just doesn't need to be there. So I'm talking about toolbars, I'm talking about junkware, computer cleaners, that kind of thing. I'm fairly passive at this stage. I only get rid of really obvious stuff. So let's have a quick hunt. AVG stuff, let's just see if that's going to disappear if I try and click on uninstall. No, those aren't going to remove themselves. So again, I'll have to manually remove those later because the AVG removal tool didn't. So fine, whatever. BT Broadband Desktop Help, that can go. Right, okay, so the HP Support Assistant, we're going to get rid of you. This is fairly clean actually. There's not a huge amount here that needs to go. Let's just keep scrolling while that does its thing. Whoops. Oh God. Oh God. Nope. Asking this computer to do more than one thing at a time is asking too much. Alright, so we've got a lot of garbage on this laptop that, as you can see, is not uninstalling properly. So we're gonna uninstall those other bits using another program in a moment. So we're not going to panic about that right now. There's a load of stuff, as you can see, toolbars and stuff that needs to go. However, I'm guessing AVG has removed a lot of it as malware. However, it hasn't uninstalled it properly, so we've got to do that ourselves. So we're going to come back to that in a moment once we've done some other stuff. So next thing on the list, then I'm going to tidy up the desktop. So for this, we're going to sort out these desktop icons, we're going to sort out the start bar, we're going to sort out the system tray. So we're going to drop into personalize, and we're going to, now these customizations are my personal preferences. However, I believe they work best for the customer. So firstly, we're going to go into themes and desktop icons, and we're going to turn on the computer and user folder desktop icons, because that makes it nice and easy for the user to find their stuff, because common users are very site oriented. You need to put things in plain sight. So when the customer is looking for their data, if there is a folder on the desktop with their name on it, they can be like, that's me, that's my stuff. So you don't hide anything away. So we're also going to go into start options and turn off start suggestions. That gets rid of some of the adverts. Then we're going to go into taskbar. I'm going to scroll down and we're going to say show all icons in the notification area, which gets rid of the arrow down here, so there's never anything hidden, so we can always see what's going on. And as you can see, now we've actually tidied stuff up, there's actually nothing down there anyway, so that we don't need to hide icons. So that's that. Then finally, we're going to hide the Cortana search box because it is, well, we're going to change it to an icon because it's completely redundant, because at any given time, you can click start and start searching for stuff anyway. So the Cortana search bar is completely redundant and just takes up a lot of space on the start bar, especially when you've got a small screen. So finally now, we're going to tidy up some of these icons. So we're going to unpin some of the stuff down here that we don't care about. We're going to unpin the store, we're going to unpin Edge, we're going to unpin this HP rubbish. Let me see, Windows Mail, are they using Windows Mail? They have it set up for Gmail, and it's in use, and we're going to black that out in post because it was a load of personal data. And the snipping tool, we'll leave that there because they might be using that. What's that? That generic icon? Google Earth. It doesn't look like they're using, that can unpin. We'll leave an icon for that on the desktop. They don't really need a start bar icon for that. So that's sorted. Right, now let's do the desktop. So firstly, I'm going to change these view to medium icons, which makes them a bit easier to handle. And we're going to go through these. So we don't need a shortcut to the webcam. We don't need a shortcut to Adobe Reader because that runs when you open a PDF. Games, Snapfish, eBay, Norton installation files, that's all rubbish, that can all go. Oh wait, the Google Earth, we were going to keep that. We'll just bring that back. Okay, BT Broadband Desktop Help, we don't need that. Connected Music powered by Universal Music Group, we don't need that. Cyberlink Media Suite, we don't need that. All right, so now we're going to sort by item type, which gives us a nice logical layout. So we've got this PC in the top left, which is just covered by my face. Then we've got recycle bin, and then we've got the user folder. So we have a nice logical layout that's clear and easy to understand. Now the user is actually likely to use these desktop icons because they can see what's there and they can understand what's there. Whereas when you've got loads of shortcuts that are not being used, the customer is literally just going to be like, I don't know what that is, and ignore it. So that's the idea here. We're trying to make it easy enough to understand that the customer will actually use it. So that's that. Now the start menu, we're going to give this exactly the same treatment. We're going to unpin everything that just doesn't need to be there and pin what the customer might actually want to use. So let's just go through and unpin all of this preloaded rubbish that comes with the computer. Okay, so now we're left with what we think that the user is actually going to want. I'm going to add the user folder so they can quickly get to their files. So we're going to pin that to the start. And now we're going to rearrange all of this into a nice tidy layout. So let me see, we also had Chrome on this, so we're going to pin Chrome everywhere. Pin that to the start and also pin it to the taskbar. So we're going to stick Chrome up in the top left. And then I'm going to we'll keep mail next to it. And then photos can go here. The photos is not necessary, but it's a nice active tile that makes the start menu look pretty, which is why I always tend to leave it in place. The weather app can go, because then we can have the calendar there. And now we can have 2 rows of Office and the other stuff we have there. So this PC, Google Earth, and the user's home folder. And we're going to rename that to Start. There we go. Now we've got a nice logical start menu. Let's just swap those around so we have a nice little sort of spiral thing going on here. There we go. That looks nice. And that looks clear and easy to understand. Everything that is there is very obvious in its function. So again, there's no crap. There's not a lot of animating stuff. Nice and clear and easy to understand. So that's our start menu tidied up. Right, so next thing, I'm just going to quickly check on the notifications. So we've got some security stuff going on there. That's because we've removed AVG. So we're going to clear those, open Windows Defender, and just make sure that that is happy. So turn everything on. Close that. And we're going to go ahead and do the quick scan just to make sure that Windows Defender is happy. So yeah. This is kind of, I don't really want to be doing scans right now because the hard drive really needs defragmenting, which means these scans are going to take a lot longer than they need to. But if we do this, Windows Defender will be happy and I don't need to do anything else with Defender. So I will come back once that scan is finished. Okay, right, we're back. It's the next day. It's the next day now. So yeah, 24 hours out or whatever. Anyway. So this thing is finished doing that. It's finished doing that antivirus scan. So Windows Defender in the bottom right here is now happy. That's saying we're all protected. So we've got antivirus back, and that's fine. It's also had some time to idle now. It didn't get all night because the battery ran out, but it did get several hours of idle time, which meant that it could finish doing those background tasks and things that were jamming up the CPU. So as you can see in Task Manager, we're now actually idling properly. We head over to Performance here. We can see there's a little bit of jumping about here and there. Now this CPU is never going to flatline properly for us because it's too slow for that. Because when this CPU is idling, it's going to drop down to low speeds. And at those slow speeds, the slightest little bit of use is going to make it go, oh, and throw up like a high CPU usage. So it's going to spike now and then. It's going to happen. However, as you can see, we're actually getting a nice idle chatter at the bottom instead of sitting at like plus 50% load all the time. And the hard drive is chilled out now. That's flatlining for us. So that's good. So we're actually making progress now. So at this point, the next thing I'm going to do is a Windows build update. Now this computer is currently running the anniversary update. I can check by doing Windows R for run and typing in WinVer for Win version. And that's going to tell us we're on version 1607, which is the anniversary update. Now, the latest version is the Creators Update, which came out recently. Now, installing the Creators Update isn't going to improve the performance of this computer. However, we have to understand that when you do at some point, this computer will automatically do the build update. It will come down through Windows Update, and it will be forcibly installed because Windows 10 has a very aggressive Windows Update, which is a good thing, but that's another discussion. However, when that build update is installed, it's going to make a mess all over the hard drive in terms of fragmentation. Now, we'll talk a bit more about fragmentation a bit later on, but the point is, if I don't install this build update, it's going to do it itself later on down the line, and that is going to fragment the hard drive and slow the laptop down. So it's better that I do it now before I defrag the computer than I give this computer back to the client and the build update do it itself this time in a month or something. And then the customer is going to be like, oh, it's all slow again after doing that big Windows update. So we're going to do that ourselves. So I need to get my Windows 10 flash drive. Now, you can, of course, download this yourself from the Microsoft website. You can do it through Windows Update. I have got it downloaded on here. To make one of these flash drives, you need to download the Windows 10 Media Creation tool. You run that, it will download the latest version of Windows 10 and put it onto a flash drive for you. And that allows you to A, reinstall Windows on computers, and B, you can also do inline build updates. So what we're going to do, we're going to plug that in. We're going to go to this PC, scroll down to our USB flash drive, and we're just going to run setup.exe straight off of that flash drive. And that's going to start the Windows installer. Now, if you boot from the flash drive, it will do what's known as a repair install, which means it will move the current Windows install to a windows.old folder and make a new one. That's not what we want to do. If we run setup.exe from within Windows, it will do what I refer to as an inline update, which means it actually updates the existing install instead of moving it and making a new one. So it's very important that we run this from inside Windows, not boot from the flash drive. So what this is going to do now is, once it's gone through this preparing thing, the first stage of the update is to copy all of the update files from the flash drive onto the hard drive. Then it will reboot into the Windows setup and do the actual update. So I'm just going to fast forward through all of this. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go ahead and do next a lot of times. The only other stipulation is it's going to ask me in a minute if I want to download updates. We're going to say no to that. There we go. Because we're going to do Windows Update after this anyway. I just want to get on to the new build of Windows, then we'll worry about updates. So off we go. Okay, right, our build update is done. Let's just quickly whiz through the first run. So we're going to leave location on because that's useful. We're going to turn off all the rest of this send information to Microsoft stuff. And no, I don't care about Cortana. Okay, welcome to the 10 Creators Update. Go away. Don't care. Right, so if we do Windows R and WinVer again, we will now see that we are now on version 1703. Thanks, Skype, I agree. Cool, so now that is done, we're going to go ahead and run Windows Update. So we're going to make our way into Settings, Windows Update. Now the thing about Windows Update is if there is nothing pending installation, it will say there are no available updates. But this is most likely a lie, so what we're going to do, we're going to go into Update and we're going to keep spamming that Update button until like 2 or 3 times it said, no, there are no more updates. So we're going to go see, it says here, no updates available. We're going to check anyway. And surprise, surprise, there are updates to install. So we're going to cycle this around. We're going to keep hitting check for updates until we click check for updates and it comes back again saying, no, there are no updates. So we're going to keep that going back and forth until it's actually done it all. Right, ignore the clock on the laptop. We totally didn't run into the weekend and have to leave it in here for a few days. Anyway, we've now done all the Windows updates. So it's installed updates. I've hit check for updates again, and it's come back saying you're still up to date. So we've definitely got all the updates now. So with the Windows updates installed, we're pretty much done with the tidying up. So now we're going to run a couple of cleanup apps on this thing that are just going to finish the job. So there's 3 of them that I use. Let's just expand this out. So I'm going to open my flash drive here that I've got plugged in and go to my toolkit, and we're going to use Logic's defrag, CCleaner, and Malwarebytes anti-malware to finish this off. So I'm going to copy those onto root C. Now obviously you can install these from anywhere. I don't install them from a flash drive because everything seems to take a long time when you install from a flash drive. So I copy them onto the hard drive, and by leaving them in root C, we achieve 2 things. Firstly, I don't need to worry about forgetting to delete the installer. And secondly, this is a subtle warranty sticker. If a computer comes in and I see these three installers on root C, I know that it's one that I've probably serviced in the past. And the date modified on those also tells me when I last looked at it as well. So it's a nice little hint that you've seen that computer before. So we're going to start out with CCleaner because obviously we don't want to bother doing a virus scan or a defrag on temporary files. We're going to remove all of those first and then we'll start running our scans. So let's get CCleaner installed. And I'm going to unplug my flash drive because Windows Defender is complaining because there's viruses on it, which is a half-truth. I don't have actual viruses on my flash drive. I just have certain programs that some antiviruses might view as unsavory. Right, we don't want a desktop shortcut, we don't want context menu items, and we don't want to check for updates automatically. Install. Okay, so we're going to do the cleaner actions and the registry actions on this. So we're going to go ahead and say run CCleaner. Yes, we are okay with deleting files. So this doesn't do anything to really speed up the computer per se. As I say, we're just removing the amount of stuff that we need to defrag. And it's also just, it's a nice just tidy up of the laptop, to be honest. It's housekeeping. Okay, so there's another 3 gigs of data that we don't need to do anything with. So we're going to run the registry cleaner. These I just kind of do for the sake of it. I don't believe that registry cleaners have any meaningful impact on the computer. The CCleaner one, there are some people that go, oh, never use registry cleaners, they damage the computer or something like that. I've never seen the CCleaner registry cleaner cause problems. There are other ones that I believe can do, but the CCleaner one never had issues with it, so I just run it anyway because I can. And so this is just going to remove any junk from the registry that doesn't need to be there. And that does just mean that there's just, it just makes the registry that little bit smaller in file size, which you never know, it might improve performance slightly, but probably not really. Right, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go into monitoring and turn off CCleaner's monitoring. Because the problem with cleanup tools like this is if you leave them running in the background, they are going to themselves create as much of a footprint as they are removing from the system. So use these things as cleaners, not resident programs. A resident program being one that is running in the background all the time. We just use these as a cleanup tool, nothing else. Right, that's done. So now we're going to fire up Houselogic's defrag. Now before we do that, I'm going to run disk cleanup because we did a build update on this computer. So there is going to be a windows.old folder here, and that's probably going to be about 10 gigs or so, so we can also get rid of that. So I've just searched for disk cleanup and I'm going to run it as administrator. You can also get to that by going through the disk properties, but if you run as administrator straight away, it's slightly faster. So we'll let that do a scan, and then that's going to remove some more temporary files and some old system files and Windows update files that are not needed anymore. All right, there we go. So we just selected everything in here because there's nothing that we need, and we're going to free up another 21 gigs of data. So not is that another 21 gigs of free hard drive space, which we don't really need, but whatever. It's another 20 gigs that we don't need to defrag in a minute. All right, so our disk cleanup is done. Disk cleanup does a silent exit when it's finished, so that's why it hasn't come up with anything else. So let's just refresh this computer. There we go, 630 gigs free. Right, okay, so let's start up Houselogic's defrag. So the reason why I use Houselogic's defrag is it's a third-party defragger that balances performance and effectiveness. Now, with most defraggers, it's all a game of how long it takes versus how effective they are. Now, for example, Piriform Defragler is a very effective defragger, but it's agonizingly slow. The Windows defragger is reasonably quick, but is very ineffective. So Houselogic's defrag provides a really good balance of performance and effectiveness. It is a very effective defragger, and it is actually very quick as well. Most laptops, it will generally get through within an hour, I have found, unless there is like huge amounts of data on the laptop. So what we're going to do, we're going to select just C drive, and we're going to select defrag and optimize from the drop down there, and we'll kick that off. So I always use the portable version of Houselogic's because unfortunately the installer has a nasty habit of trying to load a load of adware and other junk onto your computer, whereas the portable version is just the defragger and nothing else. So always get the portable one. So that's going to go through and analyze the drive now, and this is going to be the most effective part of the service. This is the part where everything is going to come together now. Everything that I've done up to this point has more or less been preparation for the defrag. And what we've been doing is reducing the amount of stuff going on in the background on the computer. We've been reducing the overheads to get the general CPU usage down. The laptop doesn't feel fast yet because the hard drive is fragmented to hell. And that means that everything loads very slowly. However, if I just defragged it, it would speed it up slightly, but because the CPU would be all over the show, we wouldn't really gain the best benefit from that. Whereas because we've now got a beautiful flatlining CPU, low RAM usage, when we go ahead and defrag the hard drive, this thing is going to feel really quick. So let's leave that to crack on. All right, our defrag is done. So as you can see, we've got a nice solid block of blue at the top. We've got some bits of grey over here. If we have a look at these, this is stuff like the hibernation file. There's probably the page file in there somewhere. There's the page file, and there'll be a couple of other system files and things like that. If you need to condense the hard drive down, or if you're trying to do some other specialist stuff, it is possible to delete and or move those files, but it's a pain in the backside, and we have no need to actually do that on a standard service. So we're going to leave those alone. We're not bothered about them at all. However, if you do need to, there are means and ways of fixing that. However, all of our actual user data is all nicely collected up in the top left of the drive, so it's nice and optimized, and it'll be quick to access. So that's that done. So last item of business now is a virus scan. So we're going to use Malwarebytes Anti-Malware 3 for this. Let's just run through the installer for this. Malwarebytes is a very effective scanner, with the exception of like one or two specific cases. I have always found this to be sort of more or less the only scanner you really need to run. The only time where this has not been enough has been in cases where the computer is in a really, really bad way. And if your computer is in a really bad way for viruses and you've got rootkits and all of that, quite frankly, just back up and reinstall Windows. It's the only way to be sure. You know, unless you have a really, really pressing reason not to reinstall Windows. Generally speaking, if Malwarebytes doesn't detect it, it's probably not worth worrying about. So the one thing I do though is once we've run this scan, I do just have a quick look around the browsers and just check that they're behaving as I expect them to. So we'll get to that in just a moment once we've run through this scan. So Malwarebytes 3 comes in a 14-day trial version. So the first thing I do is I end that trial and convert it into a free license. So we go into the settings and we click deactivate premium trial, and this will change it over onto the always free version. So this just means that I can leave Malwarebytes installed on this computer and it's not going to complain about anything after that 14-day trial has expired. So we'll just give that a moment because it has to think about it. There we go, now it is on always free. So we'll head back to the dashboard. We'll just check, let me see. Let's just check that it's actually downloaded the updates. Right, there we go, that's just downloading some updates. While it does that, I'm going to right click on this icon down here and just say don't start with Windows, because we don't want, like with CCleaner, Malwarebytes is a great scanner, but if you leave it running in the background, its footprint is going to be at least the same size as the gain you've got from scanning in the first place. Now, I have considered using Malwarebytes as an actual anti-malware program, like an actual antivirus per se. I'm not worried about the version upgrade. It's just detection. I'm not worried about the upgrades. Just definitions is all we need. So yeah, I have considered using this as actual antivirus, but to be honest, Windows Defender does a good enough job as it is, and realistically, if you do encounter viruses on the computer, you're going to need to open this up and run a scan anyway. So there's not really any pressing need for it to run in the background. Just open it up and do a scan if you think there's a problem with the computer. So let's let that crack on and do its thing. Okay, right, our scan is done. We found 356 threats. So now you might say to yourself, oh, that's terrible, look at all that stuff. Most of this is just trash, basically. It's nothing really to be concerned about. Let's have a quick scroll through here and see what we've actually got, though. So firstly, we've got a lot of puppers. So we've got Yon2, Optimizer Pro, Smart PC. So these are those make your PC faster things that we were seeing on the ad remove programs previously when we were looking. Now, again, that 356 number isn't really concerning me because as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 entries just for Yon2, so that's eight of that 356, which is all the same thing, basically. So we're going to see the same as we scroll down. We're going to see a lot of entries that are all the same thing, loads of Mindspark, Price Gong, various other garbage. So I'm not really concerned about any of this stuff. And yeah, if we scroll down to the bottom, it's all, what was that? I just saw something else. Oh, there's a malware. Adware, again, it's Yon2. That's just the installer. Again, it's not a virus, though. It's just adware. But again, this is all just pups and stuff like that. None of this is really a virus per se. So I'm not worried about any of this. It's just junk. So we're going to get rid of all of this. Oh, hang on a sec. We're going to cancel that because we've got some unchecked items. And I'm just going to select all and quarantine all of that. So we're not really concerned. Now, on computers that actually have viruses on them, I've seen like 8,000 identified threats. I've seen it go over 10,000 a couple of times. And at that point, it's just gratuitous, just all the tracking cookies ever kind of thing. So yeah, as I say, it's not unusual to get results from this. Typically speaking, although a lot of service jobs, I do come up with an empty scan, but to be honest, I'm usually surprised and slightly suspicious when I find nothing on a computer. So yeah, I'm not concerned about that at all. So let's wait for it to grind through that now. So see you after the next cut. All right, we're all done. We need to reboot. Okay, and with that, I think we are a bit done. So we've just rebooted. We've got a little bit of disk activity that's bouncing up and down now and then, but that's because we've just started the laptop up. You know, all computers are going to have heavy disk usage immediately after startup, especially when they're still running mechanical hard drives. But that's actually calmed down now anyway. So if we head on over to performance, whoops, there we go. There's our disk usage collapsing there. That's fine. And now we've got a nice, good idle speed. So let's just see how fast stuff opens. So let's start menu and settings. Not bad. So yeah, loading up settings and then opening this PC and stuff like that is my general benchmark. Yeah, that's not bad. That's acceptable. Now, obviously, if we had an SSD or something like that in there, then all of these things would be instantaneous, but we don't. We're on a mechanical, so that's not bad going. So let's review. When we started working on this thing, the principal issue was that AVG had died and was jamming the whole thing up. However, now, once we'd removed that, it was then sluggish, where it just had a lot going on in the background. Then we fixed the idling by reducing background applications, and now we have fixed the overall performance by giving it a good defrag and housekeeping. And so now we've got a laptop where the customer had assumed that the laptop was broken or was failing and was asking me to check the hard drive and stuff like that, when in reality, all it needed was a good service. That's exactly what we've given it, and this thing's ready to go out now. So this one took quite a while because of those issues with AVG and so on. On a typical laptop, I would be able to do this job within the space of an hour or two, depending on the speed of the laptop and so on. Whereas this one, you know, I actually spent a couple of days doing this one because we hit the weekend, and some of those jobs took, you know, like the Windows upgrades and things like that. It just took it a very long time to work through. But as you can see, we got there in the end. So the last question that might be on your mind is, why didn't I just reinstall Windows? Well, that's a fair point. On this particular computer, reinstalling Windows would have been a viable option. I could have just backed up the customer's data and reinstalled Windows. However, by doing it this way, I have not disturbed any of the customer's configuration, because when you reinstall Windows, the customer will walk away and it'll be faster, but they'll always be thinking, oh, this isn't quite the same as it was. I haven't got those things that I previously had and I don't know what I've lost. So reinstalling Windows is always a last resort for me. And on most normal systems, as I say, because you can do this service within an hour or so, it is still quicker to service the laptop. And while, yeah, I'm sure on a high-performance custom-built computer, you can install Windows in less than an hour, but when you account for the fact that you've then also got to reinstall any applications the customer was using, you've got to do a backup and restore before and after that, and then you've got to sort out anything else. Like, for example, if they had Microsoft Office on there, you've got to look up their Office license, re-download Office, get that up to date. It's just not faster to reinstall Windows, whichever way you paint it. So that is my standard service. That's what I do on all the computers that come in here for repair. Now, again, the other thing that I do need to remind you is that this service does vary a lot. There are other things that I do on certain other computers. For example, you know, I mean, if we go through the service and we find that the hard drive is full, we've got to find a way of freeing up some hard drive space. That might be because they've got too much junk on there. It might be because there's a runaway log file, or it might be that Norton 360 is backing up the hard drive to itself, which just immediately runs away. Or another thing is, on a lot of laptops, you could have a partitioned hard drive. So your, say, a 320 gig hard drive on an older laptop has been partitioned into 250 gig partitions, and one of them is completely full while the other is completely empty. I would then need to remove that partition. So there are other small things that I do to also improve the computer. But what I'm trying to show you in this video is just the mentality, is to show you what we're trying to achieve and the kind of thought process that we go through to achieve it. Is we look at the computer and we say, what is making this not be as good as it could be? What is making it slow? What is making it run out of space? What is making it not idle properly? And then we go through and we do whatever we can do that will improve that. And we rinse and repeat until we feel that either A, we've done everything we can to improve it, or B, we've got to the point where the laptop or the computer is running at what we believe should be its expected speed. Now, this computer, this is no rocket ship, this laptop. However, it's also got an AMD E2 running at 1.7 gigahertz. This laptop will never be fast per se, but it's actually at a state where we can actually use it properly now. So as you can see, there's a little bit of delay when it's loading stuff up, but overall it's completely tolerable. It's responsive. It doesn't feel broken anymore. It's just having a couple of moments to load because it's a cheap laptop. So past that, I hope you found this informative. As I say, don't take this as a step-by-step guide on how to service a computer. Take this as a concept. It's an introduction to servicing and an introduction to tuning. So finally, there was one more thing that I wanted to mention as well, is back in the good old days, I used to be a number chaser, and we'd actually go through, and I mean, if we open up Task Manager, you used to be able to go into check the process count on a computer and grind that down as low as you could. Now, I use the process count as a rough guide for the health of a laptop. However, as Windows has moved on, as we go up higher in Windows, the process count increases. I mean, 100 processes used to be a total disaster as far as I'm concerned. Now I consider it to be completely normal. When you're number chasing, you can get, I mean, back in the good old days of XP, when we had single core CPUs, I used to be driving that process count down to sub 30. And on my own computer, I had it down to about 12 or 13. And that was giving me lightning fast startup and response times. However, on the new age of multi-core processors and SSDs, there's just no benefit to doing that anymore. We do what we can to cut down background applications, but there's no more real tangible benefit to number chasing anymore. And I have tried that recently as well. I've got a really crap Toshiba down here with an AMD C50 CPU in it. I actually got that down to 26 processors at idle on Windows 10, and there was no noticeable improvement in performance, none whatsoever. And it was getting to the point where, for example, to get below 30, I had to kill Cortana, and that killed the start menu completely. So I was starting to do really major crippling changes to Windows in order to get that process count down, and there was no noticeable improvement in performance. So past that, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye for now.